Oh, that was from my buddy Eric Booker, who loves to pay attention to how I get ready to sit down every day. And tried something a little different this time. Good morning, and welcome to Daylight with Dean, number 127 on August, I believe it's the 19th. Is it the 19th? Sunday was the 16th, 17th. Yes, August 19th, 2020. I am so glad that you have chosen to be here with us this morning. I'm grateful for that and glad to start my day with you and my very hot cup of coffee. I just poured it. Wow. There you go. Somebody asked me on Daylight on the comments yesterday a very interesting question. The question was, what would you do if God asked you to give up coffee? And the question kind of caught me off guard because I've never just kind of given that thought that question much thought, but my answer is I would give up coffee. Now, to my hardcore coffee lovers, sorry to disappoint you. I enjoy my coffee. I love drinking my coffee in the morning, but I have given it up in the past for 6 months at a time. So it's not an addiction for me, but it's something that I enjoy. I do notice when I give it up for a stretch of time, it does take me a while to figure out how to kind of get going. Coffee as a stimulus does kind of jumpstart my mornings, but I don't get headaches when I don't drink it, and I don't crave it if I don't have it. So for me, I think I would be able to fully obey Jesus if he came to me and said, Dean Ward, give up your coffee. So just found that to be an interesting thought and wondered what it would be like for you if you had to give up coffee for an extended period of time, and how you and your body would navigate that. But fortunately, he's been a little quiet on the issue. So for me, so I get to enjoy coffee again this morning. Yesterday, I had a little adventure in the morning. My brother-in-law, who we've had here on Daylight this summer, is in the military and is being deployed. And he reached out to me last week and he said, Dean, I need you to do me a favor. And I'm like, Scott, anything you need, glad to help. One of his favorite sayings is from the movie Bull Durham, glad to be here. I hope I can help the ball club. And so I said, be glad to. And he said, well, I need you to drive my car while I'm gone. My car does better when it's driven regularly. Well, one of the things that you have to know about Scott's car is it's 21 years old, has some rust on the right fender. It's rusted through. There's a gap about that big on it. The interior is really clean, looks really nice. He's taken really good mechanical care of it. The car has like 237,000 miles on it. And he said, I'll keep, I'll keep it insured. You and your wife can drive it, not your kids. Sorry to my four. And he said, you can drive it all you'd like. And please drive it regularly. Keep an eye on the temperature gauge, because sometimes if it gets really close to getting in the red zone, the fans that are designed to cool it off only work at half speed. So it's never gone in the red zone, but I've been concerned about it, so keep an eye on that. And so we went and picked it up, and here's the kicker, it's a Mercedes. So I don't know if any of you have been around Christendom for decades, but in the 80s and 90s there was a little bit of a popular debate on whether Jesus would drive a Mercedes. And that trickled down to, well, should pastors drive Mercedes? And I realized that my brother-in-law put me in a tough position, because if I'm driving this car in New Kensington, then yes, a pastor will be driving a Mercedes in New Kensington. The kind of debate in the 80s or 90s was that Mercedes represent excess and wealth and affluence, and that pastors would really have no business driving a Mercedes. Now, I have two pastor friends that are friends of mine that drive Mercedes. So I just was concerned about it. So we had our church council meeting last night, and I ran the scenario by them, gave them the details as I did to you. 21-year-old car with some surface rust, fairly clean though. 237,000 miles car that my wife and I will be driving. The plan was for my wife to drive it to work every day. But when we got to Johnstown, I asked her, and she goes, "No, I'll drive your Tahoe home." And so I drove the Mercedes the rest of the morning and back home. And when we got home, she said, "Dean, I like your Tahoe." And I'm like, "Well, does that mean you're driving the Tahoe and I'm driving the Mercedes?" And she looked at me like, "Maybe." So when I was driving it home, it's an all-wheel drive 4-door sedan, and it has a V8 engine in it. And this thing, I had to set the cruise control on Route 22 from Johnstown to Delmont, because the speed limit is between 55 and 45 in that stretch. So I set the cruise control on like 59, because there were cops everywhere yesterday. And this car rides so smooth that I knew I could be doing 85 and not even realize it and not even feel it. So I set it at 59, drove the whole way without incident. And so my brother-in-law was quite excited that I had his car, so he was texting me and communicating with me, and when I'd stop at a stoplight, I'd check, and he'd have text messages. And at one light I came to, I was the first in line, and there was a car to the right of me, and I wanted to get in front of it because I'm that driver. And so the light turned green, and I accelerated extremely quickly. I mean, like, I got to 55 miles an hour in like no time whatsoever. And so I communicated with my brother-in-law a little bit later when it was safe to. This car, accelerates like a rocket? And he responded, yes, it does. So when I told the story of the car to the church council, who's kind of the governing authority over the river and holds me accountable as a pastor to my teaching and my teaching scripture, they keep me accountable to my lifestyle. Am I living a moral lifestyle? They keep me accountable to the growth of the river and the health of the river. Am I doing my job as a pastor? And so I just wanted to, bring this up to them. Is this a compromise of my character? Is this a concern driving a Mercedes as a pastor in New Kensington? And they were quite amused. So I thought I would share that with you this morning and give you an opportunity to comment on said Mercedes, and would love your feedback on that as well. That was my adventure in the morning. I'm checking the time because yesterday I got to the gym about 8 minutes late, and there was a little consternation about the two guys, my buddy and I, that work out together, causing the class to start late. So I'm determined to be a few minutes early this morning. So I started a few minutes early on daylight so I could have time to process through a couple things. The Mercedes being the first of them. Had a very interesting experience last night, and processing through our sermon this Sunday at the river. I invited the church council to kind of speak into the topic and navigate a few things with us that we're looking at in the message. And we're in our series called The New Abnormal, Rise Above the Crazy. And we're talking about this new abnormal life that Jesus invites us to live, and this calling to not conform to the patterns of the world, not to conform to normalcy for normalcy's sake, but to live abnormal lives that are just different. And this Sunday's topic, the parts that were contrasting this Sunday between normal and abnormality is love over indifference. And oftentimes we view hate as the opposite of love. But in practice, when it comes down to where the rubber meets the road, the opposite of love is really indifference. And when we are called to love others, and yet we live with indifference toward others, it's not rising above the crazy. It's not living an abnormal life as Jesus did. And so one of the points that was made was you can't be up close with someone and be indifferent to them. Like when you're close with someone, indifference kind of disappears because it's real to you. And that has been something over the past 3 nights at the river that we've had an opportunity to get up close with. Saturday evening, my secretary texted me and she said, "Dean, there's someone hanging out on the front porch of the river, and he's been there for quite some time. Doesn't seem to be causing any trouble, but wanted to give you a heads up. Do you have any advice on what I should do? And our front porch is a very securely covered large area out of the elements. And from time to time, kids come and hang out there. I think 2 summers ago, we had somebody, a homeless person, spend a couple nights there. But they were gone early in the morning and didn't show up till late at night, so didn't really have much interaction with them. But a couple years ago, a parishioner of the river found out that they have a very strong passion for homeless people. And their first experience in ministry in the city was working with the homeless population. And so they very clearly advised me not to call the police on them 2 years ago, and to move toward them with compassion and grace and help. And that was kind of a interesting notion to me, because I was fairly indifferent. And homeless people to me were not really something that I had a whole lot of experience with, and so they weren't on my radar screen very much. So I told my secretary, I don't know, why don't we just see how it goes and see what things look like in the morning. And that's what we did. She said, I got to turn my notifications off, because when he moves, it notifies me, and I don't want to be notified through our security system all night. So I said, no problem. And Sunday morning, when I went down at 7:30 to help set up 2 very large, heavy speakers with our music team, and I didn't see him, didn't see any evidence of him, and so I thought, okay, well, that was that. And after I left from helping set up for a few minutes, I found out that he was around, and spoke with our worship leader and told our worship leader that he was there Saturday afternoon, and somebody had vandalized our little food pantry and made a mess, and the person in charge of the little food pantry there, her husband came up Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock to fix it, and met this gentleman who was on the front porch. And the gentleman helped him clean the mess up, and they began to interact, and he mentioned that he was homeless and trying to figure out what his next step was. And it was the weekend and needed a place to stay and wanted to know, and the guy from our church said, well, there's no problem with you sleeping on the porch here. It's safe, it's secure, it's out of the elements. And so Sunday morning, this gentleman told our worship leader that he'd been given permission to spend the night there, and they interacted, and it was a very pleasant interaction. And that's all I heard about it. My secretary texted me and said, hey, talk to our worship leader, everything seems okay. And so I wondered, is he going to be there Sunday night as well? Well, Monday morning, I had to swing by the church about, I guess it was about 9:20, maybe 9:15, and he was on the porch, and he had made a little mat there and spent the night there Sunday night. And so I just went into the church, said hello to him when I walked in, acted like that was normal for him to be there, and took care of the couple things I had to there. And then I came outside and decided to meet him and interact with him, and he shared his name with me, and I was talking to him, and I'm like, this guy is not frightening. This guy is not scary. This guy is not fitting my stereotypical image of a homeless person. So we just sat and visited, and caught some more of his story, and fascinating story. His parents came over from Italy, I think in the 60s. Lived in Etna, Millville area, had a Italian restaurant there. And then in 78, when he was 10 years old, they decided to move back to Italy. The 10-year-old boy moving back to Italy didn't know a hint of Italian personally. His parents did, but he didn't. And he lived there for the next 12 years. And so he became fluent in Italian and fluent in English. And he came back in about 1990, and he's been here since then. And he's run the gamut of different things, and just has a heartbreaking story. And I'm listening to him, and I'm like, this guy is a gift from God to me. This guy is someone that the Lord is going to teach me some things through. So I asked him if he needed anything and if I could give him a ride anywhere. And he said, well, I usually walk, down the way to get some coffee. And I said, well, could I give you a ride? And he said, well, that'd be great. So I gave him a ride down to the local gas station to get some coffee, dropped him off, and said he was going to be looking for, a few things as far as how to get on his feet. He was going to get in touch with his mother in Italy to see if he could get some money so he could get an apartment or get a place. He said, I just need one bedroom, small kitchen, small living area, and a bathroom with a shower. That's all I need. And so Monday was my day off, but as I mentioned before, I had a lot of ministry stuff going on. It was a packed day. So I made a phone call to my parishioner that has a heart for homeless people to ask her, what's kind of the next step? What do we do? And, she gave me some information, but wasn't able to do anything with it on Monday. So our church council meeting was last night, and decided to process through that last night. And I had his name on the agenda, which happens to be the name of a staff member. So when I got to his name, everybody was like so amused that I was talking about a homeless person staying on the front porch instead of our staff member, because they thought I was going to be processing through things with our staff member. And they were quite concerned why his name was on the agenda. A staff member who wasn't at the meeting. So we talked about him, and I just said, he's the least frightening homeless person. He doesn't feel like a homeless person, doesn't seem like a homeless person. And so we processed through, how can we help? How can we assist? So we had an email into an agency that helps in this area that we have a relationship with, and waiting to hear back from them. And it comes time for a meeting to end, and I told them, I said, you'll probably meet him when you walk out. I said, he's probably around the front porch somewhere, so you'll probably have a chance to meet him. So when the meeting ended, I was the last one to walk out. When I walked out, 3 people that had left before me were standing on the front porch talking to the homeless person. And so I walked up and engaged in the conversation as well, and connected the dots, because he told me he was from southern Italy, which is where my secretary's husband is from. And they started talking and connected that dots. Well, they were from the same stinking hometown. They know the same shopping areas. They connected on a very deep level in this conversation, and it was like, wow, it's small world. And when we were about to leave, one of our council members said, hey, we need to get him some food. So we asked him, He goes, "Oh man, I'm not. I don't need a lot of food." He said, "But a warm meal would be nice, like a hamburger or something." So we took him. The other staff members left, or council members left, and I took him to. He said, "Yeah, Sheets would be great." So I took him to dinner at Sheets at 9 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. I did the made to order, and he just said, I want a warm hamburger. Would be great." So got him a hamburger and fries, and he was quite concerned about the volume. He didn't want a lot of food. He just wanted a little food. And said he'd lost quite a bit of weight over the years and didn't want to, just was being very careful about what he ate. So I let him pick everything he wanted out. He got hamburgers and a fry. He goes, "I don't want this many fries." And I said, "Yeah, in America, we really struggle with portion size." He wanted a small little can of pop. All they had was the 16 or 20 ounce can of pop, or bottle of pop. So I took him back up, and we were done. I asked if I could pray for him and with him, as I did on Monday morning. And I prayed with him. And he said, "Now, I probably, you probably won't see me." And he told me what was coming up, and he had a phone. I said, "Well, could I have your phone number?" And he said, "Yes. I'd like to keep in touch with you." And so I gave him my phone, my cell number, and he texted me, and I have his cell number. And he said, "I met some guys that are working construction. They asked me, they needed help. They're going to pay me this amount of money, and they're going to give me a place to live. They're staying in the neighboring town. And they have a 1-bedroom place I can live for free. And so if you don't see me around much, that's why. That's where I'm going." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I want you to have my cell number, and if you get in trouble, if it's not as they say it is, if they are scheming on you and mean harm to you, please reach out to me." And he said he would. Dropped him off at the church so he could kind of get set up for the night. We leave all the porch lights on in the church on the front porch all night long. And I was leaving, and I said, would you like me to turn these lights off?" And he said, "Oh, that would be great." So I went inside, and we have 3 light options for the front porch. And so we talked through the options and gave him a sample of what each one would look like. And he said, "Well, no, if you keep the front porch lights on at the steps and the one light on in the front part of the porch, and turn this one off that's right above me, and then the interior one off, that'd be great." I said, "Okay." Now I share that with you because, and there's a lot that I left out, just some stuff he shared with me that's really not my place to share online. I share that with you because it's hard to be indifferent when you're engaged. It's a lot easier to love when you're engaged, or even to hate when you're engaged. But to be indifferent, which is the ultimate disrespect, to be indifferent, to really not care, it's almost impossible to do when you're in close proximity to what you are indifferent to. So again, I'm late for my class, even though I started early. So I'm going to go. And I hope that whatever you're indifferent to, that the Lord would bring whatever he wants you to love, or whoever he wants you to love, that he would bring them across your path so that you can move from indifference to love. Love you guys. I am not indifferent to you. I'm so grateful to have spent this time with you. And I hope that the Lord brings across your path today who or what he wants you to move from indifference toward love, so that you will live with love over indifference. Amen. Let me pray. Father, I thank you so much for each person here today. I pray that you would bless their lives, and I pray that you would guide them, that you would bring across their path that area, that thing, that person that you want them to transition from indifference and move toward love. I pray that you would bless them. We're grateful that you want to do our day with us, and that you're present and active and real. We love you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen. God bless you guys. See you early tomorrow morning.